Maybe I'll down this on my phone so that we have, because these sound effects are my favorite. Like these. I'm just saying, like these.
What a cute way to start this episode.
These sound effects are my favorite.
Welcome, Horse Moon. It's the full Horse Moon, young Earth Horse Moon. We're here swinging kettlebells, and we just had solstice. Dragon boat came out of nowhere,
right on top of each other.
That's rare, right?
Yes, pretty rare.
Yeah, 5-5. Johnny 5 is alive. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, seems that way.
Yeah. So before we get into it, we have. I just had the tea. Okay. They're laughing at me. Okay. So today we are drinking our sticky rice ZhenWuAstrology, courtesy of our friends over there at West China in Austin. They're the ones that handle our tea club. And so if you get into our tea club, then this is the type of tea you'll be getting. And so what is that subliminal messaging coming from Seanan over there? So smells great. If you ever want to participate in these tastings as we're doing the astrology talks, and just join the connoisseur club and have these teas delivered straight to your door. Okay. Boom! By a young Earth Horse.
Paul Revere.
Macaroni.
Slingshot in.
So, oh my goodness, this is a ZhenWuAstrology. This is from August. It's an autumn harvest of 2022, late summer, early autumn harvest. And very, very light vegetal aroma, nice stone fruit, kind of apricot-y, kind of plummy. What do you get? What do you get?
Yeah, I get the vegetal. It's very nice.
Yeah, so not to leave you hanging, sorry. When we break into these cakes, it'll help to have one of these really fancy tea knives. You hold it against how they do the YouTubers. Okay, nice tea knife here. It's basically a letter opener. You can in fact use a butter knife.
Or your hands.
Or your teeth. But in Chinese culture, maybe this will come up today, there's something about saving face. We say 给面子, right? And so when tapping into your tea cake, you want to save face. So you would turn it over and you'll notice that the butt end of it, right? This is actually where you would pick your tea from. And so, you know, you kind of just run along the grooves and you find a little cranny, a nook, if you will. You wedge it in there and you kind of just break off the little that you need for your tea ceremony. So for today, that's about all we'll need, right? And then that way you have your tea, but you save face so that when you wrap this back up and present it at a later time, you still have something that's quite nice. Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Okay. Good. So while I go through this tea making process,
I'm so busy. Yeah, horse moon. It's I'm surprised anybody's here at all. It's like very busy time, right? And yeah, I suppose it brings up a lot. I think that I mean, I have this feeling that everybody's already knows what I'm gonna say. I'm like, all right, so you just tell me, you know, like what's happening? What are you feeling? Like, what's the experience of being in an Earth Horse Moon? Certainly, like very enabled, right? Very energized. The fifth moon is considered to be yang qi at its peak. Yeah, it's like go get them, you know, like it's very up and at 'em, giddy up, you know, all the things that, you know, the fifth moon is the American moon. Ming would say that a lot. He's like, fifth moon is like the American.
I like these references.
Horse chi is American chi. Like
Mustang.
Yeah, I mean, I can. The way I describe the fifth moon is that the fifth moon is everybody's chance. Everyone has a chance to be a consumptive materialist. we all get to participate in that way, to like consume, move forward, you know, grow. You know, the idea of growth as consumption or accumulation, a sense of accomplishment, is pervasive. It's really what the fifth moon is all about. Is this kind of nonstop, you know, like at this point, it's very clear that Yang Qi is like at its height. And that's a really important point, you know, because what's going to happen here in this conversation is that we're going to start talking about the differences between the cosmology of medieval China in the tradition that's been handed down, and the way in which we appreciate Yang Qi, right? So there's someone right here.
Live show, yeah. Live show.
What's up? How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, you too. So we have a situation in which, from the standpoint of the cosmology of Tongshu, when you're talking about the peak, you immediately talk about the decline, right? So
I had to let that one sit for a second.
Yeah, it's a little telling that the culture that we're in considers summer solstice the beginning.
Yeah.
When it's actually you know, that's the tip of the roller coaster, and now we're going down, you know. So so it has a lot to do, it goes back to like our first episode together when we were talking very specifically about yin and yang. I know it's been like a year now. Let's just take a moment. So, but in those beginning sort of episodes, we talk about the Tai Chi symbol as being an expression of a process, not a proportion. Right? So yin and yang are not equal. That's not the basis of this cosmology. It's not to think of yin and yang as somehow equal players. They both, their intelligence relies on each other, and they're obviously interconnected in all the ways that every single one of us can talk about, you know, because it's a fundamental principle of our dualistic reality, is having this conversation between yang and yin, seasonal conversation between yang and yin. But their priorities and their role in the formation or in the unfolding of the year are not the same. So yin is the dominant player. It's all the potential. All of the potential comes from yin, right? Every seed stored, every idea, every nuance, every flavor, everything that's kind of transmitted along generational lines, all of this is yin. And Yang's job is to serve as an instigator. It's basically to kind of poke the situation and move it along, right? Yeah, it's the bad boy in the club, right? So, and so it makes a really big difference how Yang Qi basically cultivates its expression. So when we talk about like the Yang Qi of winter, like in the depth of winter when yin is pervasive and everywhere, responsive to everything, and yang is basically trying not to get overwhelmed. It's basically essentially securing a commitment out of all the possible inspirations we could have in the wintertime, which, you know, we have a lot of ancestral realms talking to each other. You know, the sense of differentiation in winter is weak, right? So we are just in this flow with like a fluid, incredibly fluid being during that time. And Yang Qi is to kind of help us have a sense of boundaries, like kind of hold it together, And then at the same time, to really discover inspiration in that process. So we come out of the winter, we actually have something we care about. Right? Not just like, oh, I had this dream, I can't remember what it was. You know, like we're actually like, you know what? I think I know what I want to do. This is yang. Commitment is yang's gift to yin. Is give it a direction. So the story coming out of winter going into spring is what kind of direction, what is my appetite calling for? Like what directions, what can I do? Let's try this. No, that didn't work. Like all the different possibilities that I could explore. And maybe as we get closer to summer, it's coming more focused. To where when we get to summer, we're talking about how to follow through, how to complete, you know, how to find satisfaction, right? And a sense of fulfillment. So that's really the job of summer, is to bring us to that place, not to be scattered. that we actually realize our dreams, not just keep having more. You know, we actually do want to bring things to conclusion. And this is the reason why when it comes to summertime, and we're talking about like the solstice in particular, which is what we experienced in this fifth moon, we experienced both the height of yang qi and from a moon perspective, and the summer solstice itself. So the solstice itself is a pivot point. We're about to complete it. It ends on Friday. Like in the West, we understand it as solstice is like a 3-day period, or like overnight, longest day, shortest night, you know. But for the Tongshu, it's like a 2-week period. So that means solstice has a lot of textures to it, because we're experiencing the auspices of those individual days as it relates to moon cycles. So there's a lot of it does. That's why no solstice looks the same, is because they're in a particular year, in a particular moon. And in this case, the solstice actually tends to appear later in the fifth moon into the sixth, where you've had this peak yang experience. And then, you know, we get to appreciate all of the competitiveness and all the vigor and the multitasking, and all the different ways we can like come to fruition. And the dragon boat. Dragon boat, as described by Ming, is like the one time of year celebrated by the imperial government where you could be competitive, because you're supposed to get it out. You're supposed to like yell and scream, express your emotions, like all of the things that kind of like that yang qi is pushing forward. Right? So yang doesn't create, it instigates. It instigates fulfillment and all of those things that, you know, you could talk about it like from in terms of yang qi penetrating the ground and bringing yin up out of the ground to express itself in the fullness of the tree, etc. Like, so you can think about it from the standpoint of expressions of nature and agriculture, and you can also think about it within us, like all of the things that are within us, right? And the yang qi, the sun, the energy, the vitality, what is it instigating to produce? But again, all of that is yin, and yin's fragile, and especially this time of year. So the idea is it's kind of like a cooking metaphor. Like, yeah, your soup's not going to be very good if it's on full blast the entire time. Like, you're going to ruin the soup. You know, you're going to scald it. You're going to like, it's not going to. You're not going to feel the fruition of cooking. You're just going to burn everything that you have. So that's the reason why peak yang is considered to be dangerous and peak yin is not. So the depths of winter are not considered to necessarily be dangerous, because yin is by nature responsive. It's paying attention to all how everything relates to one another. But when yang qi comes around, it's not. It's just like single-minded. So yang qi has this capacity to like be a brute force. And that brute force can essentially, you can talk about it from Chinese medical tradition, it's like you're depleting your yin when you're like hyper-stimulating yourself all the time, just keep burning the candle at both ends. And I've seen this in individuals that like have strokes, almost die, because they have a habit, a personal history of depleting and vanquishing their yin, so that when they get to peak yang season, sudden death comes right at them, right? So this is the time of year, especially when Horus and solstice appear at the same time, conjoined. That means you have both these great peaks and heights that can be very stimulating. They can be very like, I'm gonna live forever, like this is very like the fullness of that sense of power. And then understanding that, like, okay, there's the roller coaster, it's on its way out. And so it's harder in that particular circumstance to invite yang to retire, which is the point of anytime after solstice, the second half of the summer season, is to invite yang to retire. The image that Ming always used was the emperor just had a grandchild and wants to play with the grandchild rather than rule. Oh, don't bother me with that. I'm playing with my grandchild. And it's a freshness, this rediscovery of softness, of responsiveness, right? Because at the peak of yang qi, and looking at the Tai Chi symbol again, yin is born in these heights of fire. You have this like really a sensitivity that comes out of that. And so the gift that yin gives to yang is clarity. It's like, okay, I only have so much time. Let's make it count.
Wow. So yang gives yin commitment and direction. Yin gives yang clarity.
Mm-hmm.
See why we write every month? No, I really appreciated what you said too about how pure yang is more dangerous than the pure yin.
Yeah.
Because everyone says winter's coming. And we're all worried about the winter.
Winter's not your problem. Summer is your problem.
Yeah, we don't trip off summer.
Right?
No.
Well, no, because we're compulsive in our relationship to yang. We want to be Mustangs all year long. So it's harder to be a Mustang in the middle of winter. And so you're immediately kind of fearing it, because like, and on a certain kind of subliminal level, I would say you're wondering if your yin's gonna run out. Like in winter, hard to sustain all that energy all year long. And if that's how you identify yourself, like, I work out 2 hours a day, in winter. Yeah, these things can trip real quick and just kind of, but in the, or it's more to say that during this time is the rise of like febrile diseases. They're created here. They're created in the summer because we don't slow down. We don't invite yang qi to retire, so it gets stuck, right? And then Ming used the word cinder. They just become cinders in the body. But I would call it like a spinning firecracker. It's just like, it's just sitting there, like it's not dispersing. We're not giving it a chance to disperse when we talk about retirement.
Yeah.
What we mean is that it needs to disperse. It needs to become less aggressive, less invasive, and become something that everybody can participate in. This is where we're going. We're going into the goat room, which is this kind of it's a pivot point in the year, major pivot point in the year of that sixth moon of the year is basically how everything, okay, we've got a whole list of things, and how does it all work together? Like,
right.
Can we make harmony out of all the things that we've created, all the things that have come to pass? But if we're still pushing, we never feel complete, And it doesn't mean that, like, especially in a rabbit year, it's not about completion. Isn't about I got my list of things done. Completion is like the feeling you have when the sun goes down. That's fulfillment. That's satisfaction. It's just available this year, like this time of year. It's very potent to take that, to really internalize that sense of satisfaction at the conclusion of every day, regardless of whether or not your plate is clean or not. It has nothing to do with your plate being clean. It has everything to do with just recognizing the end of the day as a place of being satisfied and cultivating that sense of satisfaction. I think when you do that, then asking Yang to retire is actually pretty easy. It's not hard. Like all of us right now have been like, Yang retired, that's impossible. You don't realize I've got all this shit to do? Like, no way. That must have been nice in medieval China, but come on, dude. Like that's where people go, like, and it's partly because we live in an industrialized society that has like a constant, it overvalues and makes a huge commitment to monotony, and it disconnects us from our own internal rhythms. This is not about like discussing what's happening in the world. It's about what's happening inside of us, but we're very powerful creatures. We can persuade ourselves to do something completely unhealthy for a very long time for other reasons, and like that's called karma. That both collective dharma and individual, and those two things are interlinked, right? Okay, so you could say, okay, like, because I got somebody yelled at me today, you always talk bad about earth horses. And okay, so the reason why this particular fifth moon being an earth horse in relationship to the water rabbit, so all those things that we just said about the fifth moon conjoining with a summer solstice in the intensity of that experience, but then also think about that it's an earth horse moon. And the character of the earth horse moon is, I think I'm a dragon. So I think I can fly, like it is, it tends to overestimate itself because it's so emboldened by this modification of earth. It's fifth moon is normally fire, it's summer. When you modify it with earth, then it becomes this like, yeah, I have a very broad vision of all the things I need to do. And, damn it, it's going to happen. So there's this determination, which is really, really amazing. So you could say that the water rabbit is that the earth horse is channeling that water rabbit chi, in the relationship between earth and water tends to be fertility. Mm-hmm. It's channeling, it's directing, it's holding the water, right? So you could make that argument, but that you're like channeling the motives of your water rabbit into action, into production, and all those things. But then, the question is, I don't know that a water rabbit even knows what their motives are. It's fair to say, and it brings to mind my like all-time favorite quote of Ming, when he said, "Well, if you don't lie to other people, good for you. You don't lie to yourself. How would you know?" So this is where things get tricky. This moon is even if you're going for productive breakthrough, right? Good chance you land up in collapsing catharsis. Like same, maybe. That those two things have a relationship. Like might be a good way to look at it. I'm just saying, so it could be this like really like upwelling, I move forward, like I have to, I feel compelled. Like I've got to try, to move forward on certain things. But if you're feeling like hesitant, I'd say probably good. It's probably okay, to like err on the side of caution, essentially. And there's a huge wave in the culture, basically talking about, I don't want to work anymore. Like I'm tired of working so hard. This has been really ongoing, and there's no signs of that really slowing down. And so the earth horse moon is sort of a reinforcing that feeling. easily be seen as a good thing, because it is a kind of reflecting back on one's motives. I would say that if, depending on how your snake moon went, right, in terms of like kind of internal process, you know, what is productivity in a water rabbit year? It's probably very internal. There can be some external kinds of evidences of the things that you care about, you know, but like, again, it's not like a checklist, really. It's more like an internal process. So in the case of an Earth horse moon, there could be a lot of like, you know, dead ends or failed, you know, catharsis, these kinds of obstructions that cause a complete and total breakdown. And I would say if that's something you're experiencing, then good, that's fine. You know, like that's probably what's required, you know, because there's that subconscious or even a shared level of conscious motive that, you know, we're having in the society that we're in. I mean, it's a water rabbit year, so like we're feeling all the feels, and not just our feels, but your feels and your feels and everybody's feels and my best friend, and you know, all these places of commonality, and even, you know, acting on things that aren't really even yours, you know, the people that you're like really intimate with, especially, you know, there's tons of transference happening in that, as particularly in a water rabbit year. So good luck, you know, like knowing what your actual motives are. Please, like nobody knows. Like I think that it's yeah, just double check before, you know, you make the big commitment in the horse moon.
Double check yourself before you double wreck yourself.
I'm just saying, like it could, a horse moon can feel tramply, you know, like feeling pretty trampled. And a lot of that maybe it really isn't even your fault. And there's no fault here. You know, like you're participating in an ecosystem that's naturally interconnected. So if you feel trampled by something, I think that one of the big things I was thinking about with this particular system of astrology, and that I go round and round on this a lot, and I have to find ways to say this very specifically, is that this is not a system that's offering empowerment.
Distinction.
Yeah. So we're not doing that. we're not like making you a better human. Like like that's not happening. It's more to say that you know, we're not even this view teaching isn't even trying to change your mind about anything. It's but engaging in a self-reflective way with what's being offered. I think the value is you get to experience where your mind actually is. Because I tell you right now, I think a lot of us don't. I mean, one of the things we talked about many sessions ago was that, you know, every culture makes assumptions. And the most dangerous cultures is the one that thinks that it doesn't make any assumptions. And that's very much, I think, what we're encountering, like in this particular culture and society. It's like coming up against what our assumptions actually are. You know? So what are you saying human life is? Like, you know, but like getting down to the, you know, tell me, like, can you tell me? What are we? Crickets, you know, like, and then it's about somebody else's fault. So like, that's also a part of yang, is to be critical. Yeah, so like a lot of criticism, obviously born from our own discomfort. Anyway, yeah, good news, everyone.
Well, let's go to our next segment. There's a qigong for that.
Please.
So in this conversation of reaching a peak, and then as soon as you meet that peak, you're already exploring the descent, right? And so double yang turns yin, double yin turns yang in a sense. Shout out to Lao Tzu. So the movement is a movement called, oh, you caught it? You know, my boy Lao Tzu. You ever read that Dude Chang?
He just gave you a little fist bump.
Sorry, we digress. Okay, so the movement here is called Rising Phoenix, and it's brought to mind because it expresses a solstice and a descent, right? And so we can go ahead and try it. We're going to start with our hands here, right on our belly button.
Oh, yeah.
Below the belly, like you got this big old belt buckle. Like you're putting a big belt buckle in this work, okay? Mustang, cowboy, horseman. Okay, so here you are with your cowboy belt buckle. You ride up the center line of the body, and you kind of turn your thumbs forward, which will give you access to the backs of your hands. And you want them to ride up behind the neck and head, behind the ears, up, reaching. And then from here, you just gradually come back down. It'd be really easy to coordinate this with the breath, right? It makes sense to inhale as you rise. Makes sense to exhale as you descend. And for this movement, we want to specifically note the rib cage, right? Note that when you go through this range and you raise up, you'll feel that the ribs start to spread apart. Now, I'm going to use one of my hands to illustrate. I want the intercostal spaces of those ribs to close first.
Oh, I see.
Right? I want to close my ribs, lower my elbow, lower my hand.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So yes, I'm bringing my arm down, but it's the afterthought. I'm closing all this first, right? And that's kind of the unseen aspect of it, right? We see lowering the arms, but we don't see that internal mechanism.
It's like reclaiming the structure.
Exactly, right? And in that conversation of as soon as yang is expressed, here comes the yin deep from within.
Right.
And then we may see the avalanche.
Right. Because that is the case, that it's the idea is that it's in a blending of the sort of typical gender dialogues about yang and yin. Like yin is born from within, you know, yang, right? And so it's not it comes out from the inside.
There you go. So there's a qigong for that.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, you know, I feel obligated because the view is very different than the view in which we live in. And so, like, and exhaustion is a huge feature of our culture and society. And exhaustion would be a really profound experience in this particular moon, going into the next moon. Like, exhaustion should not be something to ignore or to like gloss over or amplify, or another cup of coffee, you know, like exhaustion should actually be like a message. And you should listen to that message. Like, young people don't have to, but like, but when you start getting older, then you're like, okay, no, I'm tired. Like, and that tiredness is actually a really crucial signal from yin, from within, you know, that if you amplify the chances of depleting or vanquishing yin in this time of year, when you continue to press, it's like the fluids of your body actually give you all the options you have for movement, for, you know, creation. In fact, like, you know, my particular Chinese doctor, he's always like treating fluids because people are so depleted. Trying to recover fluids so that your body actually has options. You know, no fluid, no option. You know, like you become a rock, you know, and then rocks need to be carried around or wheeled around in a chair, you know, like carried in a pocket. You know?
Shout out to the rocks.
The rocks of the world.
Somebody loves you.
Oh, yeah. So I think exhaustion, should be paid attention to. Now on the clarity tip.
Yeah.
This is something I'm experimenting with and how I talk about this transition as we go from, because the next stop is autumn. Like, that's where we're headed, folks, is autumn, you know. And I think in the process in between the birth of yin and the growth of yin in autumn, you have this kind of respiration. I call this respiration between production, action, activity. It's still good to act. I don't want to say that it's not good to act, Like it's good to be busy and like do things. I think that the connecting into, you know, our sensory experience of exhaustion and like how that relates to our motives. Like, does anybody remember spring? Like, what were you excited about? Do you even remember? Like, no one remembers, you know, like, because they're just gone. And once they start moving, and that's all they care about, movement. And so, where is the fulfillment? Where is the actuated sense of completion in a world in which, you know, we're in this monotonous activity 24/7? It's tough to reclaim, but I think it's really important, you know, for us to find it wherever we can. But in this space between end of solstice and the beginning of autumn is this respiration between productive activity and revisement. You know, when we're like, okay, that sort of worked. Let's try it again and do it like this. You know, like that kind of, this is very strong right now. Like it's very supportive. So if you're having this, so personally, I embrace the just produce, just throw it out there. You know, like do the things, and then before you release it, like in case of being a writer, like I just write a ton. I have no idea where it's going, and then later you go back and you revise it. You know, like so you're not looking for clarity all at once. You're just allowing this kind of movement forward, but then the spaciousness to like check it out and see what works, what doesn't. Trouble is, like a lot of people think that revisement is setback, right? Yeah, but like at this point in time of year, really bad idea to think of revisement as setback, because then you get all worked up about it. You try super hard, and then you break things. Like, and that would be some of the caution in this particular moment. And you offend people in relationships. We need alliances. That's where we're headed. You know? We can sustain growth. We can sustain like activity if we rely on each other. If we like do group projects and like be in that place where it's full circle, you know. In spring, we cultivated sense of relatedness and resonance and things of that nature. Now, in this time, all of those sort of protocols and relationships that we established, that we need those things because they're now going to be tested. Like, because did you really mean that? Can I actually trust you? Yeah. Trust but verify. Yeah. Like you're in that place right now, and so if your bonds are tight, like working well together, like it will keep you from doing dumb things. Yeah. And because you've made agreements to listen to other people, you like pull as a team, you know, like, well, if I go and do this, and like, please don't, you know, like, okay. All right. You know, so you work together with other people and like you keep the relationships going, and then you can have growth and productivity. Like the season where we have things we're able to refine and allow the ripening process to complete. No more growth. Let it ripen. Right? Yeah, let it like come to its own fullness by not pushing, right? By just letting it go forward, sort of guiding it. So this is a big difference, you know, like hard to articulate, like the seasonal, the way this view sees things like summer and late summer as not a time to push, but just to enjoy, because still growth, heat still happening, you know, because like yang is big, you know, like powerful. So it doesn't just turn and go away. You know? It diminishes and it disperses. And in the dispersion, then we get this like fullness. You may know people that, I knew people that grew weed when a while back. And
you may know people.
You know people. Someone out there may know
somebody.
People. I don't know if you know this. The thing that I found most fascinating about the process of growing cannabis is that you're sort of torturing the plant, because you've got an enclosed environment. You know, if you're doing an indoor thing, and like there's no chance it has any outside stimulus. It's just sort of in a box, you know, and you're feeding it tons of nutrients, and then you're telling it it's about to die. Because you change its lighting on it, and it's like, oh shit, I'm about to die. And like, so, and then you feed it a bunch of food. And so what does it do? It's looking to reproduce, you know, it's looking to secure its longevity. It's looking to go to winter. And the way it's doing that is by embracing this just huge fullness. That's what we wanted. And we want it to be like huge, you know, and like, so it's trying to attract pollination. That's what that flower is. So in a similar way, and then you kill it. I always found it to be very like, wow, that's pretty fucked up.
Perfect segue for our other segment, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Because here you are, this flowering plant, this, oh, and attract all the suitors, and then right, so you think you got it going good, and it's not so good. And Shannon, I love asking you this because horse moon, really easy to say, tigers, you got it good this month. It's really easy to say that because I read my Chinese horoscope on the restaurant, right? Yeah. And so it's really easy to just see what's across from what. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I love that you take into consideration, oh, we just came out of snake. This is water rabbit.
Right. It's always a context of being in a rabbit year.
Right. Yeah. And then so good luck, bad luck, who knows? It's like, yeah, face value, okay, tiger, you got it good. But in the bigger picture,
sure,
this little pillow of comfort might actually be setting you up for the slaughter.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Right. And so, you know, good luck, bad luck, who knows? That's our segment. So who's got it good? But who got to be careful? And who's got it bad? But maybe it's a blessing in disguise. What's going on?
Rats would probably have a blessing in disguise attached to it. I mean, rats always in danger of being trampled, you know, in the middle of summer. They're just like, you know, like, because it's just too much happening for them to manage. They want everything to be nice and discreet. And similar with any of the more either relationship dependent, domestic sort of characters like rabbits, you know, this could be a tough time for them, just because it's like too many things happening all at once. I mean, anything that's action oriented, regardless of how it turns out, they're going to be like enabled and empowered. They're going to feel that, even if it's like it didn't go very well, but like, I mean, you know, I did it, you know. they're gonna have something to take away, you know, from that experience. So yeah, your horses and tigers, they're just engaged. I mean, I think a good number of characters were like got relieved to see Snake go. Because it was just so internal. It was like hard to move off and do things. Although, you know, obviously snakes did well, and dragons, you know. And so when you get to, like I said, horses, everybody's chance to be a consumptive materialist. So, almost everybody does all right, you know, if they're busy. But it's only the kind of characters that don't want to be busy like all the time, which is what the horse is asking. It is sort of like it's action oriented. In any problem that needs to be solved through action, not talk. Like, you know, we're doing something about it, you know, like we're not deliberating here, you know. So I think it's not until you get to the goat where things kind of calm down, you know, for some of those domestics where there's more room for, you know, negotiation and like diplomacy. But in the horse, you're sort of shooting for assessing questions later. So even like rats, even pigs, you know, could get run over, and dogs are too busy helping, like everyone else, you know. So their sense of purpose, sort of, you know, they know what they're doing, which is what they want the most. You know, I just want a clear set of parameters to work with, right? So that, I think, in the case of the horse moon, is actually something of a relief, for dogs in the context of a water rabbit year. It definitely feels like a relief. And so roosters, yeah, uh, you know, monkeys. I mean, they can be action oriented, but and at the same time, they benefit from a little quiet time, and particularly in this moon because there's a lot of things happening.
Thank you for that permission.
Yeah. You would do well to like, because listen, there's only going to be like 2 or 3, maybe just 2 chi characters that actually can keep up, you know, with the horse. So, you know, the bottom line is don't try, you know, like, yeah. So being inspired is nice, you know, but discipline's better. Discipline's way better.
Zing.
Mm.
Okay. Good segment. Next segment. What would
we should
do?
Who should have done that at the beginning?
Well, see, that's why you got to download your own.
I know.
Sound
I
app.
really got to get
Was
this.
it
Really good.
so cute?
I love these sound effects.
So next segment, what would Ming do? Our darling teacher, dear friend, big brother Charles Hillier, Mr. Ming. We love to pontificate. We love to speculate on a young Earth Horse moon. What would our buddy Ming be doing right now?
I think he'd be on vacation. I think he'd be gone.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. I think that
That's like BC or something?
probably. Yeah, out in nature, something along those lines. Yeah, I think it would be not about retreat, but just like vacation. Like, because that was that's one of the things that he brought up in the recording on the summer solstice in general, from 2014. Look it up. Is this notion that when you get to summer solstice, that vacation is actually a really good way to process this sort of peak yang experience. Not only are you putting yourself in a situation where you don't have to do anything, but you're also putting yourself in a situation possibly where you can't do anything. Whatever skills you have actually don't matter. You know, like going to a beach in Mexico, nobody cares if you're an acupuncturist, right? Like, you can't work. Not really. You know, you find somebody to work on that, like, you know, like, but that's not what you're there for. You know, so going outside your context where you're empowered, enabled, all those things actually allows you to relate better, not only to your skill set, but to the time, you know, so that you're not like pressing. Because I'm telling you, like, there's a lot of encouragement to like, look, you be conscious of your behavior. Like, are you pressing too hard? All these things. But there's a lot of ways in which we're not even aware of like how hard we are pressing. Like, it really does take maybe some kind of catharsis or breakdown to really kind of like, I need to go to hot springs, you know. And then when you go there, you're like, I have been pushing, I don't, for years, you know, like, you realize like how terrible you are to yourself and to the people around you. So there's a lot. This is called catharsis, you know. This is called like this sudden awareness. And so I think that if Ming was gonna do anything for himself, or, you know, encourage whatever that'd be, he, you know, would be like, get out of town. Get, you know, instead of getting ahead of all the things you need to do, leave it behind. Like, actually let it, like, I'll be back, and then don't tell any, you know, you know, he didn't say when he was coming. He just left. And I think, you know, then you come back like 2 days later, whatever, you know, like, but it's just the permission that you give yourself to like not be, horses can be enslaved. I don't know if you know this. Like, horses, if you give them an open-ended project, if we're talking about chi characters and doing fate consultations, like, horses seem, yeah, oh, thumbs up, you were very active. But like, if they have strong fate to be active, that means they can be enslaved. If they're given an open-ended project, horses need to have boundaries. That's why they need dogs as friends. Yeah, and they need dogs to tell them, hey, you've been at this for a long time, right? You know, and they need a dog to kind of wake them up to that. So having boundaries is good for horses, you know, to not like set yourself up by having an open-ended sort of contract. Let it be, you know, it's a month-long contract with the option for extension. You know, we can talk about it. So that's kind of reflected in this advisement, I think, that Ming would make, or that he would do. He would just be on vacation. Be like, see ya.
I love it, man. I love it. Everybody busy, working, take a break. The siesta season, it's kind of the same idea, right?
Right.
Yeah, avoid the heat of the day.
Right.
Take a nap.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect segue. We're at our hour mark. Let's open it up for questions and answers. I bet Connie's going to ask about what hexagram is.
You're going to unmute it?
They can talk.
They can talk.
Yeah. Say hi. You do have to get yourself one of these little app toys, see?
It would probably be a really terrible idea. Just be like walking around the supermarket.
Okay, who has a question?
I have a quick question. You did not mention dragons now at this season. I'm a rat with a fire dragon daughter.
Wow, I'm so sorry. Wait, stop. That's so.
All you had to say there, you said it, everything.
You know, like, dragons don't make small decisions, and so I think that if dragons have discipline, when it gets to a horse moon, they can do very much what we just talked about. They're just disappear because there's a lot going on, and like maybe they care, maybe they don't, you know. So I think that with that much going on, not every, like monkeys, like not every dragon is interested in being in the center of all the activity, because then that would mean that they weren't what everybody's focusing on. They want to be in places where they actually are the center. But like when you get into these places of summer, there's too many things happening for them to be the center. So it can be good for them, I think, to unplug, you know, this time. It could be really good for them to unplug. It'd be a good time, especially now before going to the goat moon. Because in a goat moon, dragons, that's probably not their favorite time. Too much deliberation, too much talking. Like, and unless they are kind of like in a center of attention, or like guiding the dialogue, which as a fire dragon, no interest, you know, likely, you know, no interest in, like, I know a number of fire dragons, and like when it gets to a certain level of complexity, you know, in terms of, it's not like they can't follow, but they just find it not to be valuable to do so. Like, why don't you guys go talk it out and then come back to me when you've got it figured out? Because, you know, fire dragons have I love my fire dragons. They do have a level of intolerance that they're navigating. And so when you get into these places where like there's a lot of deliberation, this sort of diplomacy that's happening there, yeah, it's better for them to show up in the monkey and offer the solutions that the deliberation couldn't cover. Because like we'll find out pretty quickly that like we may have a lot of really good ideals about how things should go, but how they actually go. And that's where the monkey steps in. So dragons can be really influential during that time because they're like, let me show you the way. So in terms of action, I mean, the bottom line is there's no really telling a fire dragon what to do, as you know. So like when it comes to this particular moon, that's particularly true. And I think that if they were to sort of step out of the activity, you know, take a little personal trip, whatever, that would be actually really nourishing for them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's a long-winded explanation. Take a vacation. And
chill.
yeah, hexagram 30 is the hexagram that's related to the solstice, and it has to do with it's called the Oriole bird, or it's about summer solstice, and it's about this decline. It's about decline, and what decline, how decline brings us clarity, because that's kind of that's the fruit, that's the juice. You know, when we're talking about this kind of late stage summer, talking about the cannabis plant, all the trees, you know, all the fruit from here on is going to be bursting, like really pushing forward, because it's going for longevity. It's trying to fertilize and like leave behind a seed. And it's just a really interesting time to think about ripeness as the other side of the coin of rot. I mean, we like ripeness because it's, you know, you're nourished by it, but like we wait too long. It's now something you plant in the ground, you know, so that you can grow more. Just think of like your average avocado. Goes south pretty quick. So that's, I think it's important to, in this cosmology, it's important to really keep that in mind, you know, that this fullness and ripeness is basically begging for winter. It's taking us to winter. It's taking us to death. And we're projecting forward because like we get nourished by these things, fortified, and moving through this harvest process and feeling complete. And then we're able to take yang qi inward, right? And shelter it when then surrounded by darkness and dreams and inspiration and potential again, surrounded by potential again, and like maintaining ourselves through that dark time to then come out the other end and do it all over again. That's really the only point. And so summer is not, the biggest takeaway is that summer is never in a vacuum like any other season, right? But that's the tough bit for us, is because we want to encase summer in amber and carry it around and use it all the time, you know, like that's what we want. We want that. That's sort of how we're raised. Give 100, my favorite phrases right now, give 110%, you know, leave it all on the table, like very, very aggressive, you know. And there's a sense in which like this aggressivity, we think that giving it all 110% is actually a sign that, well, number one, you really care. And that number two, that what you're doing is important. Both those things are kind of implied when we say that, you know, that we're really that invested in that anything that we work that hard for must be really important. You know, we don't talk about giving 110% when we mow the lawn, right? You know, like, or go to the store, like it's just something you do. It's like routine, but like somehow when it's, I give myself 100, I give 110% to this, must mean, wow, must mean it's really important. So these are the kinds of things we're unraveling right now. It's like, is that actually true? Like, where is that? Where does that come from? Because the model from this cosmology for thousands of years, developed over thousands of years, is that, yeah, no, the model of success is something that you have no idea where it came from. And it came from little things you do over time, preserving yourself along the way, being conservative, and working in close proximity to others. And then everybody's sort of contributing to this process that then erupts on its own, and nobody can take credit for it. Like that's like number one success. It's a very different worldview. So when we're talking about like what's favorable in an Earth Horse moon, you have to back up against, you know, where's your mind? Like, what is that? You know, like, what do you think? What are your assumptions about life?
Where's that sound effect? Where's your mind at? Dharma slap. Wow.
Where's Dharma slap?
You know, we don't have a Dharma slap.
That's mild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah. Anyway.
Yannicka, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking about. I'm drinking French white wine, and
Way to set a stage right now. You
Yeah.
get the setting going. Okay, got some French white
Vouvray.
wine.
Yeah. I forgot that was off mic. But man, I'm like a little bit sad. I've been sad for a while, and I don't know. The realization I came to just seconds ago is if I didn't have you guys or other people in Oakland, I would be more sad. And I don't want to call it samsara or anything silly like that. It's just, where do we go from here? How do we do it? You know? And I'm just I mean, Ming or it's just, I'm really taken by it. These great teachers that came to my life over the years gave me a lot of realization about who I am. But then when they're gone, what happens is just us, and we have to deal with it, and you guys are awesome. This isn't, there's no doubt. But I'm just taken. I'm just taken. That's all. So there's no question. I'm just exasperated.
Yeah. Oh, exhaustion.
Yeah.
Yeah, exhaustion. It's good. I mean, good. Like,
Sad, Brett? You having a hard time? Good.
I feel your despair.
Good.
I mean, it seems like the Indians and the Tibetans know about, samsara. It's like, but like, how do we deal with the day-to-day life about it's bullshit? Like it gets like academic, and I don't want to be academic about the next generation. I don't want to teach them about some sort of Tibetan teaching about bullshit. It's just like, how do we teach them to go forward?
Oh yeah, this is something that was interesting. I was talking to a good friend of mine who has a couple boys, and I was having this moment of what would I teach children? Like if there's like one thing other than reluctance, maybe we should wait. But like, what's the thing that you would want to get through to them? And I think instead of, because right now we teach all our young people to be aggressive.
Yeah.
And by aggression, it can mean like not just like you have something I want, I'm taking it from you, but like that's minor aggression actually.
It's driving. It's driving. Ming would talk about driving.
Yeah, a lot of aggression and
like
identity
breaks and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so thinking about what you could teach children now is to be responsive. Just be responsive. Like the biggest, the unfortunate thing that we don't do is that we don't talk to each other. I mean, some of us do, but we don't talk to each other about like what our experience is like, right? So we typically work with expectations we think the other person wants, and then we're responding to that, but like in the sense of actually talking about our experience and being in our experience. Those are requirements for any kind of contemplative path or sense of self-cultivation. And with that, I think there is, at the core of it, is being responsive to one another in any particular circumstance. And like that takes time, you know, to teach those things. There needs to be a kind of a feeling of
we have a big problem, but I don't mean to interrupt, and you know, and you guys are so profound, but there's a big ass problem going on, and
I mean, to that point, very specific, I would quote Ming and say, no, there isn't.
I mean,
there is actually, because, and the reason for this is because everything is self-resolving. We don't get off the hook, but that doesn't mean that like whatever is plaguing our, you know, supposedly plaguing our environment, remember, like it will complete. Like
complete how?
Oh yeah, no, you don't get that. Sorry, but like that's not required.
But astrology is all about how, like, it's the future. You know,
as I mentioned before, there's nothing about this cosmology, there's nothing about this view that has anything to do with empowerment.
I know. You guys, I mean, I'm not arguing. It's just
no, it's all good. These are great. It's just an excellent.
I'm just sad. I'm just really sad, you know. I don't know.
We're friends.
I know. Yeah, we're for sure, brothers, not friends. But white wine. Sorry, Vouvray. Thank you.
Well, hey,
just thank you. That's all.
For sure. Let's be in touch.
Yeah.
We are over our hour now. Anybody else want to share something before we wrap up? How about people in-house? We do it live here every month. Here at the temple, every full moon, you can expect us. This is a year in the making, guys. We started last year, Goat Moon.
We did.
And so this is actually episode number 12 that takes us through one complete cycle.
And you know, I remember the question that I started with in that Goat Moon: do we know how to finish? Do we know how to complete something? You know, which is exactly what we're talking about now. So it's like, you only have to watch 1 year of this.
Whoa, we are profound. Whoa.
Just one time. That's all you need. It's like this season 1. We're in season 1. We're just finishing season 1.
This is season 1.
Next moon will be the premiere of season 2.
Same bad time, same bad channel. How are we going to celebrate?
Tea. Tea.
Guys, always a joy. You two in YouTube land and you guys watching behind the paywall. Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you.